For those of you joining us or listening in that's kind of new, I don't think we ever do like a, hey, new people. We just assume everyone's a listener. Uh, we're going to be discussing neurodiversity, diverse, ADHD, autism, those sorts of, how would you categorize them? Because there are so many different types of people. The movement, the groups, communities of people that discuss specific tools. I've tried to encompass
Community,
everyone
yeah.
there.
Yeah, that way. Yeah. I like that. Community.
Yeah, because I feel like
Yeah.
it's a the movement is obviously political, but there is obviously a community outside of the political movement that
Yeah.
look and help and talk together. And I feel like you're part of that community. I am not.
Hmm.
Uh, it's not that I don't want to be, it's that personally I don't find the discussions in those sorts of communities specific to the community. When I hear, contribute to sometimes, or see discussions that are happening in the community, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's in newsletters, whether that's in social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, the conversations, even though they're directed at types of people, categories of people, labeled people, I don't see the benefit of the categories, the labels, the benefits to the tool. Like when they say X tool is really good for ADHD people, for example, I sit here and think, yeah, but I'm not diagnosed ADHD, and I find benefit from that tool.
Assigning and attributing tools to communities has always struck me as a little bit odd.
Mm.
It feels more marketing-y versus ecologically valid. If we just
Yeah.
that seems to be the word I'm just using. Because it's the most accurate. It just doesn't seem to be very accurate. Because it can be used for people who don't identify with the label. Because all apps can be all apps. Once again, it's less about the label and more about what your needs are. Like, what do you
Mm-hmm.
actually need? Because if you need something simple, then Asana would be great. But is Asana a neurodiverse friendly app? Well, no, because I can't stand it.
Interesting. Interesting. So you said, is it a neurodiverse friendly app? You said no. Is that no to everyone or no to your
Oh, no,
needs?
to me,
Okay, right. I wanted to
because
clarify that.
yeah, but it's not to me. So does that make it non-neurodiverse or neurodivergent friendly? Well, because it doesn't fit me, it might not fit other people. So I guess like it just seems a moot point.
Yeah,
Will
yeah.
it work for everybody? No. Okay, cool. Now what?
It's interesting that you say that because I've seen lots of people online, specifically on YouTube, talking about project management apps and saying this isn't X neurodevelopmental disorder friendly. And I do get this feeling of I don't like this, so because you have the same label as me, you won't like this, which
Mm.
to me goes against the, hey, we're all unique, we all have different needs, we need to try and help develop each individual needs. And the saying of if you know one person with ADHD, or you know one person with autism, or you know one person with X thing, then you know
You know
one
one
person.
person. Yeah.
And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I understand what you're saying. Everyone is unique. And if you know one person, you know one person. So why do you then extend your personal preferences with a tool to the group community following that you have? Because that to me is marketing a tool that wouldn't help. I understand I use this tool because it helps these needs of mine, i.e., I struggle with this thing, and this thing because of these skills, these disabilities that I have in these environments. So this tool helps fill that gap. I understand explaining that, but I don't hear or see that. I just
Mm.
see this is really good. I like this. And then
It kind of reminds me of the my brain conversation that we've
mm,
had before about how when we say, oh, my brain does this, my head won't let me do that. It's like almost distancing your identity or who you are rather than going, I don't understand this. I'm struggling with understanding this concept. It seems to be within the same kind of vein of like, these are my needs, but I can't say I have these needs. Because if I say I have these needs, I admit that there is a problem or there's something wrong. Instead, I'm just going to say I am X label so that it's distancing my, oh, other people are like me. Yes, but everybody has needs. But I think the way that it's assumed is we can't vocalize our needs.
I want to go a little bit deeper with that. I reckon this is all hypothesis
I
because
love
we're
how the app talk went from this to like, here we go.
yeah. Well, I want to go a little bit deeper. Obviously, disclaimer: this is social science. Uh, so when I think about needs and discussing needs, a lot of people, when they think of needs, they think of special needs or special educational needs or disability needs. There's a negative connotation that goes on to needs, not a, oh, you're perfectly abled by traditional standards, but you have needs that are different. Oh, okay, let's just help you with that, which could just be you don't know where you need to go in a building, you need a map.
Yeah.
Like, that is a need of a person. It's not a negative need. They just don't know where they're going, so they need a map. But when we talk about apps, tools, advice, self-development stuff online, the needs are perceived or interpreted as a negative thing. So it's a negative to have a need. So maybe that's the reason they don't talk about their needs. But if they don't talk
Yeah.
about their needs and other people don't have those needs, and you're grouping and categorizing people, I would argue this could be controversial. I would argue that is disabling behavior
Yep.
because you're telling people to do something that doesn't consider their needs and you're overlooking their needs, which maybe I'm missing something here, but isn't that what ableism is? It's overlooking someone's disability and assuming they can already do something.
Mm.
And if you're giving someone a tool, overlooking their personal needs, uh, I don't like saying it, but I'm going to say it because we need to discuss this stuff. Is that ableism? Is promoting an application without considering the needs of the individuals ableism? Obviously,
Is
there's
it?
going to
But then when you say that, what about the people actually know what their needs are? Because often, especially in the experience that I have, everyone wants the apps, everyone wants the tools, but they don't have a clue what they want, which is obviously where coaching comes in. But especially in the business world, I don't know many coaches who do that.
but that's the point. That's the difference between exploring the needs of the individual to find something that works for them
Mm.
and blanket advice to a wider community. When I promote, or I don't even promote apps, I just talk about how I use them. Like when I talk about the apps that I'm using, I express why and how I use them, or I just say you can do this thing and just expose affordances. So as a coach, because I would class myself as a coach, I don't have clients, but I still coach. That's the way that I would express information as an educator. I say, here's some affordances that may help through these particular needs. I wouldn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I come across as this is the best app to use, like blanket for these blanket peoples. This is the
No,
best writing app. This is the best academic app. With packaging, I think I've put it in, but packaging something and explaining the nuance and concept, I think are slightly different, especially with the way the online media works. Packaging with oversimplification, I think is unfortunately necessary. But when you talk and explain your reasoning, that I don't understand the justification for the oversimplification. Some big words in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and it is a problem with this whole app thing.
Because when I think back to the Building a Second Brain Summit a couple of years ago, there was a session on, I think it was on ADHD. Jesse was in it, Marie was in it, there was a couple of other people in it, and they were talking about ADHD either as a superpower or not, and what apps, Building a Second Brain apps, were best for them. Marie obviously talking about Notion, and they spoke about different apps. And listening to that, someone that is not diagnosed as neurodiverse, well, with a neurodiverse disorder, so I guess I need to be specific about that. I'm not diagnosed with a neurodevelopmental disorder, sorry. And I don't identify as being part of the neurodiverse movement. I would classify myself as neurodiverse because I believe every human is neurodiverse, but I don't identify as part of the movement. Listening to that conversation, it felt like I was being pushed out because I don't have ADHD, so these things won't work for me.
They won't work for you. They don't apply to you, so it means it's not useful. Yeah, and I think that's been one of the biggest things with my journey in the business world of like, as I've been shifting to this approach, the needs-based approach, which is such a fantastic name and is super accurate and is markety as hell, but also accurate. It's that lovely fine bubble of like everything in one place. It's like one of the big struggles, and I think we've discussed this before, of like neurodiversity. I talk to neurodiverse people, except I kind of do, except I kind of don't, because I can talk to anyone, because the approach that I take is needs based. So what you need, I can either provide myself or find someone who can provide it for you. Like that is literally in a nutshell how I work. And often in the business world, you're like, oh no, you can't be everything to everyone. I said, well, why not? Why can I not do a number of things? Because that is how I work. That's what I do.
And that is where the whole marketing and niche thing comes in, which, moving into some complicated stuff, but the ecological approach, when you look at expert, it's a noun, it's a thing, it's something you can just grab hold of, rather than, when we're talking about the ecological approach, verbs, processes.
Yeah.
So we have expertise in these things. So, oh, I'm an expert in X thing. No, you have expertise in some of those areas, in some of those relationships, but there is expertise that you don't have in those relationships, which is where you as a expert constantly develop. And if you don't constantly develop, well, now you don't have expertise in that. And if you have expertise in other areas, does that make you a multi-expert person? No, you just have expertise in various areas, which to me would make you a more well-rounded, holistic, humanistic coach, teacher, educator, facilitator in whatever it is that you're doing, in whatever field you're in, whether it's business or self-help or mental health, whatever. So you kind of need / want to be someone that has expertise in various areas, because then you can actually help a person in a more holistic way, rather than being the, I'm just going to pick on body parts here, the foot person, the hand person, the elbow person. Like, no, unless you're a professional athlete that needs people with high levels of expertise in really niche areas, you don't need someone that specific.
Yeah.
Which is where,
And in
like,
the business world, you've got like the multi-passionate or the multi-potentialite and things like that. Other labels, of course. Oh yeah.
because humans love labels.
Yeah. That we do.
Yeah. So talking about apps, when you think about apps for the ND people, I'm going to use ND because I don't want to have to say neurodiverse every single time. For the ND people, shorthand, when you see apps promoted, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because I know what I've seen. What sort of tools and apps do you see promoted? And obviously, you could categorize these, or you could just explain sort of what sort of features they have or don't have. What sort of things do you typically see over others?
Not a lot. They're kind of the same apps overall. They're just packaged. Like the features are pretty much the same as every other app. There's a way of structuring your information or putting it here or organizing yourself or doing this or doing that and behaving in a set way and improving the fact that you are broken and this app will fix you. Which we just
Rejected.
And that's the way it's promoted is like, you are disorganized. You must do this. A good example, one that is constantly promoted on my feed, is it's called Notion or Motion. That's what it's called.
Motion, yeah, I've been looking at that. God, it's expensive.
One, it's expensive. Two, ChatGPT can do it for you. I know, I checked. You could just put in the stuff that you want to do, and ChatGPT will do it for you. And guess what? You can do that for free. It's just nuts. And the oh, I was so disorganized. I had this problem. I had that problem, and I'm like, no, you didn't. I mean, yeah, sure. You do you have a problem? I guess. Or why don't you sort of like do something? Like the app isn't going to fix everything, and what it causes is a hyper reliance on the app. And if that app goes down, what's that? That means you fail. That means you don't succeed, as far as they're concerned. And I'm just like, yes, use an app. Yes, use tools. But they're tools. They're not solutions. They're part of the system. They're not the whole system. And I think that is the bit that I find frustrating with tools that are neurodiverse focused. The moment you step away from that app, the environment has changed and the affordances are gone.
Yep. That's how I would explain it. I don't know if you want to, I didn't know if you wanted to go in, but the application, the tool, the tech is an affordance, it's an opportunity for behavior. And as you develop expertise using the affordances, you develop skills that require that sort of tool. And if you then remove the tool, you can't use the expertise because you don't have that relationship anymore because the app's broken or it's gone or whatever. And when people say, oh, this app will help you, it's saying this affordance. In the ecological approaches, like words, I would imagine is this affordance will help you.
Yeah,
but it's an opportunity.
Yeah,
but it's an opportunity for behavior. Opportunities for behavior are dependent on the individual's needs, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's an ecological way of saying what we've already said. When I think about motion, I don't like motion as an application because it does it all for you. And if it does it all for you, how much are you aware? Like, how can you attune to information if you haven't?
I cannot, like, I've looked at it, I installed it, because of course it said, oh, it's for neurodiverse people. I'm like, all right, cool, I'm going to check it out, because obviously I attached to that label. Downloads it, looked at it, and goes, this is shit. This is shit. I don't get it. I don't get it. I have no control. I'm relying on technology that is still incredibly early days, and does not have all of my context, my very specific context, which is unique to me.
Could you give a tangible example?
As in from my own experience?
With like the calendars, so you're saying context is unique to you that motion doesn't consider.
Well, I mean, I'd have to put it all in for one. I have to add all the context, let's say, for example, a good example of this is in my calendar, I have a period of time where I have to go to town, pick up my daughter, then wait a bit, and then pick up my son. But if my other half is home, which sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. So that context is not, it varies every single week.
Hmm.
And so, unless everything's in the calendar, which for me right now, yes, most things are in the calendar, so that's fine. But at that time, it wasn't. Or if something else comes up, or for example, I'm not well, or or I have to go and pick up the kids early. Like there's lots of edge cases that aren't really edge cases that I have to consider, which means if the whole point of it is to get me more organized, one, I very much doubt looking at a calendar is going to make me more organized. And it assumes, on top of all the normal assumptions,
Caveat
that
there, though.
yes,
You said looking at calendars is not going to make you more organized. More organized than what? Because if you
I was
don't look at a calendar, right?
that's the point though, isn't it? Like, will it make me more organized? Well, that
More
depends.
organized from what?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the thing.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
that's the kind of like, well, what do I actually mean? Will I get more stuff to the assumption it makes is that our brains are a computer. So if we just structure everything and we make it easier for ourselves, we'll just be able to go through it and just go 1, 2, 3, do this, do that, do this, do that, fit it within the exact time frame that is dictated by the calendar app. It doesn't talk anything about like, well, what if I'm not well, or what if I don't have that motivation? Is the app going to give me motivation? No. So I'm probably not going to do it.
But obviously, I know you use Morgan. When you look at Morgan compared to Motion, are you looking? So I guess we'll go one step backwards as well. You use Google Calendar as your calendar client?
I use Morgan as my calendar client, but it's connected to Google. Yeah.
Yeah. So if Morgan was to crash and burn and die, and Fantastical was to crash and burn and die, you'd end up at Google Calendar, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm the same. They won't happen then. So you essentially you've got Google Calendar, then you've got Morgan, and then comparatively you'd have Motion in there. So I would imagine going from nothing to using Google Calendar is a bonus because you're organizing stuff in a calendar, right?
Yeah.
Then going from Google Calendar to Morgan, what does Morgan add to you?
It's nice. It looks nice. And it adds the task features and the other little bits and bobs that are on top. For me, it does. If I were to have used Motion, I would have used Motion, not Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't put it on top because
Oh yeah. I'm comparing
yeah,
the two. Yeah, what I'm saying is like when I look at Motion and I look at Morgan, I feel like they're similar. They're very, very similar. But to my knowledge, Morgan, when it adds stuff to the Google Calendar, it adds a lot more stuff when it comes to
yes,
features than Motion does.
yes.
Yeah,
Motion's main feature is AI.
right.
That's its feature.
I've seen it manage like projects and stuff in the project view with like boards and stuff, but the face tells it all.
But it feels over engineered and exceptionally expensive.
Yeah,
The
it
price
is.
is dumb. It's just there is not enough value found in that personal value for me to warrant spending. I don't even remember how much it is.
I think it was
It's
$19 a month.
I'm just like, why? Morgan is less than that, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, it depends if you're on the pro or the premium. I think the premium is like 11 a month.
Yeah, there we are.
So yeah, it's definitely cheaper. I
And
know
there's more
the month.
features.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Morgan does everything Google can, so it doesn't
Mm.
take away anything from Google, but it also adds you can drag it backwards in time. You can drag it from all day to the day, or the day to all day, which you can't do in Google Calendar for some silly reason. You've got natural language date adding, all the recurring start tasks and stuff are in there, but you have task lists which are in Google Tasks, but Google Tasks is different. And in Morgan, when you tick a task off, it actually disappears from the calendar. It doesn't just sit there with a strike through.
So nice.
And obviously it does all the other bits and bobs that we've discussed when it comes to like booking things. And the mobile app, although people have moaned about it, I don't find an issue with the mobile app. Like,
No, it's all right. It's not bad. It's not
it,
bad.
it does its job.
Yeah.
And when I think about the ND group community and the apps that they talk about, Sunsama seems to come up a lot. I don't know why. I personally don't like Sunsama.
So I've looked at it. If this is the app that I think it is, and I might check before I comment, but I liked the idea of it. This is what I think it is. Yes. One, it's the marketing immediately. Work-life balance.
Okay.
It's
So I don't actually look at the app pages anymore because they just say the same old tut.
well, it does. It is literally realistic daily goals, time boxing. So, but I can do all of that everywhere else.
Yep, that's a calendar app. Well done.
That's not. Yeah, I am there.
Because when I see Sunsama discussed and spoken about, a lot of the time it's not, this is how Sunsama has helped me do X thing. It's, I use Sunsama and you should too. Like that's the general consensus I get. And I'm like, but why? Why does Sunsama work for you and not Google Calendar? Because I think that's the best example, because most people use Google Calendar and then sync their GCal with whatever packaging app they're using. And I don't see this is what this app adds to Google Calendar. For Morgan, I know exactly what it adds because I've been using it for over a year. But Sunsama, I don't get what it adds, and it actually constrains what I can do, which to my understanding of ND people, they don't want constraints. Typically, they want more flexibility to make it hit their needs.
So that's the thing. That's what they say.
Okay.
That's the interesting thing. A lot of the neurodiverse space is focused on all the things they can't do.
Right.
It's not as focused on how to solve that. Instead of working with what they have, it's much like, oh, well, if I use this app, it will force me to behave properly.
Oh, they're still looking for a fix, even though they're not.
Yes, it's a fix. During that time, when people look at those apps, it's for a fix. It's to make it better. It is to make that person do it the right way instead of finding their needs and
Procrastinating.
yeah. I mean, even that in itself is meh.
Well, it's sort of like it's the shiny new toys with procrastinating. It's I'm going to try this new app because it's going to help me do XYZ better than all this stuff did before, and you bounce backwards and forwards. I'm actually going to relate this to a conversation I was listening to. So I listen to podcasts a lot, and I was listening to a conversation that Jesse had with someone from the Obsidian community. They've got a course on Obsidian University. I'm awful with remembering names because I don't need to, so I don't bother trying. But I listen to their podcast. It's a very good podcast. I've spoken to the guy before. I remember Jesse because I've had to remember the person's name to talk about them and reference them. All that time I couldn't remember. So yeah, they're creator of the Obsidian University. But Jesse and that person and their co-host, they were talking about note-taking apps and how Jesse managed to write the book, the Extra Focus, I think the book's called,
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And I found it interesting that Jesse was talking about they're using Workflowy, but they've gone backwards and forwards between apps, like different apps, and they used Obsidian, they used Rome, they used Remno, then they used Notion, and they've gone backwards and forwards, and they're liking Workflowy at the moment. And I think that's a perfect example of, to me, confusion. Because Jesse suggests to find an app that you can work with, that works for you, to avoid the shiny new toy syndrome. Yeah, you can play around with other apps, but don't just jump. And I'm like, but you're jumping between apps.
This is the thing that I find quite interesting around the shiny object syndrome. One of the behaviors is dopamine, like going after dopamine. Like
because it's a proposed cause.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew.
needing that, the difference, having different things, being able to do different things. And it's like, okay, why are you telling people to stick if, one, you're not sticking? Two, if you need that, okay, build your stuff around that. Because if that is a need for you and you need novelty, you need new, you need difference, okay, how do you build around that? Well, you have an underlying system that will work anywhere, which we do have an underlying system that will work anywhere. We just aren't attuned to it and can't quite see all the pieces together. Okay, cool. So spend the time doing that, then you can jump to any app you want, because which is exactly what I think both of us could do.
I think that's what the majority of people that are typically categorized as organized people have. They have a process that they are familiar with, and they can dump the process into pretty much any app and still get work done. Will it be as effective as the app that they have picked? Probably not, because they picked the app for a reason.
But that assumes they don't need novelty.
Exactly.
I don't need novelty. I've moved, like, I like seeing new apps, but I'm so much less interested in that now. I'm so much less interested in all the shiny apps.
Don't get me wrong, I love exploring apps. But as people that are familiar with my YouTube channel will notice, I like comparing those apps to the ones I'm currently using. And most of the time it's me going, that's cool, but I don't need it. That's cool, I don't know how I'd use it. That's okay, but this does it better. I'm not moving.
Yeah.
That's what I just end up saying.
That's the thing. It's like, I found what I need, so I'm just going to use it.
Exactly. And when...
But that is only one approach.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important part to say. Like, yes, if you can find one app that does everything you need, go for it. Great, amazing, congratulations. You're very fortunate. But if you can't, then it's okay to do swappies, provided you are aware of your underlying system. The underlying thing that you do and you use is there. It doesn't have to be fully featured. It doesn't have to be fully done, because that's a complete...
What's yours?
My underlying...
Yeah,
that's a good question. I think it is that... I like that question. I can't... I know it, but I can't vocalize it.
Okay, so list out some features that you would really need, some things of the tools that you use that you would struggle to work without.
All right, cool. It needs to be fast, like almost instant. So I don't have to think. If there are things that get in my way, it will disrupt me immediately. I don't want to have to fiddle and tweak. Speed, easy, as close to one touch, see what I need as possible, because I don't have time to spend faffing. I don't mind the setup. I am happy to spend a chunk of time getting it ready, getting it into place, but then once it's done, it must hide in the background. I don't want to feel the app. That's one thing. Mobile friendly is really helpful, especially now, because then I can look at it on my phone and see what I need to find and write it down and do all these things. It needs to be, kind of reiterating my point, minimal as anything. Like, I don't want to see lots of buttons. I don't want to have to think about lots of things. If I see a massive dashboard or a massive bunch of things that I can do and tweak, then I will be there all day and then never get anything done. So I need features, but not in the way.
Yeah.
And customizability. I need it. I want to be able to tweak things to the dumbass level of degree, because that's what I like, and not to have to be stuck to a certain structure that is dictated to me by the app.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very
I value
similar.
that flexibility. Yeah, it's that ability to just phase in between my tasks and just.
What I was going to say, what sort of apps are you referring to? Because it sounds like you're talking about Morgan or a calendar app,
I'm
task app.
talking about like productivity tools in
Yeah.
general, because that's kind of a lot of the time. We could go into every other app in the sun, but businesses,
Yeah.
that kind of
Time
almost,
management.
yeah, it's time management, life management, and I like that area. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
Sure.
somewhat similar. Obviously, a lot of my time is spent researching.
Mm.
So when I think about for those unfamiliar, when I think about the tools that I use, Obsidian, Zotero, Morgan, Obsidian, anything that's going to replace Obsidian, like you said, has to be fast. Like,
Mm.
if it's not fast, I'm not going to enjoy using it. If it's not extensible enough so that I can fit it to the way that I would prefer to work, so moving panes around. Like, if you can't have 3, 4 panes up at once with tabs, now that I have like developed expertise in using those, I struggle.
Yeah.
I don't like not being able to just click and drag it over to the side or just make a new pane. It's difficult now that I've been experienced to Obsidian. So that's something else. And then when it comes to surfacing research, a nice way to find it, to query it, and to adjust it in those like queried views to filtered views. Obviously in Obsidian, that's data view. Notion, that could be tables. Like, I could use Notion for what it is that I do.
Exactly. That, I think that's a really a key thing. I think, to drive the point home, in case it hasn't been driven home enough. Like, that's the point. It could be done anywhere, and I could move back to Notion if I wanted to.
I just don't want to.
I just don't want to. Well, the only thing that Notion would not be able to help me with is speed right now, because it's not
And
doing very
offline.
good. And offline. I'm less bothered by offline. Offline is very helpful.
I thought for your D&D you need offline.
Yeah, D&D, I do need it offline. Yes. So yeah, D&D is necessary for the offline stuff.
So
Yeah.
I would imagine that's what most your Obsidian use case is, because you don't direct time towards research as much as I do. I don't know if you don't have the time, because you probably do. You just choose to, like, family first, understandably.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of my primary use case for Obsidian these days is D&D. So yes, offline is essential.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And when it comes to calendars or time management, I bucket project, task, event management inside time management, which is why I don't like project management apps, because a lot of them, they integrate with Google Calendar in some way, but it's very janky. I guess is the word I want to use. It's very much an afterthought about, oh yeah, and you can integrate it with this, or you could show it here, or you can try and see it there. It's not very seamless. I mean, even Todoist, to an extent, it's not great when you integrate it with Google Calendar, because you're like, well, do I use Google Calendar or do I use Todoist? Well, if I want to tick a task off, it's got to be in Todoist, so it goes off in Google Calendar. So why don't I just use Google Tasks? Because then you can tick it off in Google and it's very
Bitty.
janky. Yeah, janky, bitty. It's just not as nice to use. So when I think of a time management tool, Morgan does that. Like
Yeah.
there's very few tools that does everything Morgan does. And when I say that, I'm thinking scheduling, because scheduling meetings, open invites of going, hey, I'm available for these times. When are you available? That, yes, you can do in Google Calendar, but it's it's not easy to do. It's not as easy as it should be, because you have to set up the work times, and then you have to set up available times, and it's not just a click and drag. Like you can't click and drag in the calendar. You have to
Super bloody weird.
yeah, it's really finicky to get the times and stuff right, and yeah, but you
It
can
is
do it.
just horrendous.
Yeah, you can do it. It's just like it's a nasty implementation. Then when it comes to
Yeah.
tasks, Morgan has tasks and it has subtasks. It has due dates and planned dates. I don't want to say due, but they're essentially due dates, they're deadlines, or they're scheduled times. So you've got a due date, a deadline, and then you have a planned scheduled time, planned start, planned end. So there is both types of dates, which is nice. Yes, it does cause friction because you're like, oh, is this a due or is this a planned? But you can use it any way you want. It's up to you. It's flexible.
Also not really in the way as well.
No.
It doesn't seem to get like for me, I just I don't know, I don't care. I genuinely I'm just like, okay, cool, fair enough.
Yeah, if you don't want to use a due date, don't use a due date. I didn't. I am now because of other reasons inside of
I can't wait to
Morgan.
hear all about this, but yeah. Yeah, I just don't care enough to care. I don't care, which is
Mm,
great. I don't have to care. That's the important thing. If I have to care, it's a problem. If I don't have to care, great.
yeah.
That's what I don't want to have to care. I can not go into Morgan for months if if I have that joyful moment.
I was going to say,
Uh,
when is that going to happen?
Never, but that's the thing. If I was to stop using Obsidian, I don't know about that actually, no. But when I stopped using Notion for a while, I come back, I'm like, oh, there's all these things I've got to figure out and learn and understand again and
Remember where things are.
remember where things are. Whereas it's so, which you could argue is expertise, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. There's certainly an element of that.
Yeah.
The thing I would say with Morgan, for me, when I compare it to the other, I guess, competitors, is that one, obviously, it works on all devices. It works on all like tablet, phone, computer, but also OSs, so Windows, Mac, and Linux. Like having that flexibility for it to work on everything, very nice. But because I'm only a Windows user, it just has the nice, easy features. The Alt-C global hotkey shortcut is so underrated. It is so
I
underrated.
don't get why people are just screaming about it because that was what made me switch.
Well, it's the first thing. For those that have listened to the James Danny interview that I have on the channel, like the first thing when I said to James about Morgan, he was like, "I don't really get it." I was sitting in the office, and I just brought Morgan up, like, because I had the two screens up, because there are two screens in there rather than the four I got here, and he just came over, stood over my shoulder, I pushed the hotkey, brought Morgan up, and then started like explaining what Morgan is, and he was like, "Wait, stop! How did you do that?" I was like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "But how did you bring it up? You didn't click on the browser." It's like, "No, I just hotkeyed." "What do you mean you hotkeyed?" I was like, "I pushed Alt C and it brought Morgan up." "Wait, you can do that with an app?" Yes. Like,
And to be fair, the interesting thing is I didn't even realize that was a feature, but it is a feature of Fantastical.
mm,
It is
yeah.
a feature of Fantastical. But what I do like about Morgan, I can't remember whether because I just switched to Morgan because whatever. One of the things that Fantastical doesn't do is it doesn't open up the full app. Like
Mm,
ILC, it's still the full app. It's not just an agenda view.
yeah,
It's literally the
that's the same with
full
Cron,
app.
because
And I'm
Cron
like,
has a hotkey.
yes.
Cron has a
I'm like,
hotkey, and when I was using it, I was like, because it shows you the agenda in a really awkward, because it's awkward Windows side panel thing. But you can't do anything. It's not the app.
oh,
It's
that's
just a
crap.
quick view.
Oh, see, in Fantastical, you could do that. You could still
Oh,
tweak, you could still add things, you could still do things. It was just you're stuck in agenda view and you'd have to open it up and do. But I literally just a second ago, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this, and I was just like, oh yeah, cool, do this. Oh yeah, cool. I need to return that back to the library today. It's done, and I can get everything. And if I want to, I can bring it in. So I have a shortcut on my Mac which allows me to center and put it in the middle, and it will do that. and I don't have to think about it.
Nice.
It's just a
Nice.
nice little. It's just I get the full app experience instead of having to go all the way down. And I suppose in Windows it'd be start menu, open Morgan. No, boring. It's just shortcut, done, center, good,
Yeah.
excellent. Thank you.
And
I'm done.
I mean, on top of that, the global command bar.
See, so interesting. I was so looking forward to that, but just don't use it. I think it's because at the moment I'm not in my studio as much as I used to be.
Maybe, yeah. It's funny. I use the command bar all the time when I'm on my computer, but I still have a tendency to add stuff on my phone.
Yeah, I add all my events on my phone.
It's just, well, I add tasks and stuff on my phone, but something that I was playing with yesterday that is interesting, which would work for other apps as well, Google Assist. You can add an event to your Google Calendar via Google Assist, and your Google Calendar is directly in Morgan.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, I could add something to my Morgan indirectly by just adding it to Google Calendar. So you're not limited by what the calendar app does, because it's just showing Google. So it's like if you go to Morgan, you don't lose the ability to add an event to Google Calendar. No. And if you really want to, you can use Google Tasks and just integrate Google Tasks with Morgan. So yeah, it's one of those apps that you don't lose anything, but you can gain a lot. And for the ND style community people, when I think about apps like that, it's a win-win. Like you get everything that you want, rather than being constrained by, oh, you need to organize. Like, I mean, I think it's Timo, TIIMO. It was an app developed by people doing master's research into, I think it was focus and attention.
It sucked. I hated it. I've used it. I used it on my Apple Watch and it sucked. It was so restrictive and it bugged me. I'm like, yeah, but I want to do no, I don't do this at the same time every day. I do it here. Let me do it this way. No, I can't. All right, great. Fuck you. No, I'm off. I'm done. Yeah. I'm done. If you stop me, and that is the thing. For people with ADHD, one of the behaviors is if it doesn't work the way I want it to work, I won't do it. It just won't happen. It just won't happen. I'm like, so why are you designing apps that, and I assume it's because, oh, well, this is the correct way of doing it. And it goes back to that correct way of doing it, which goes back to the fact that if you understand your needs, then basically any app can be your playhouse. Like, instead of thinking, oh, well, I need a neurodiverse app, think about what the needs you actually have are. Moving back to your needs versus the label.
Exactly. That's where I was going to go, because Timo is just so constrained. And I'm sitting here thinking, my day's far more complex than that. I can't just put in like 5 little card thingies with pictures and go, oh yeah, look, I'm organized. No,
I tried that. It was infuriating. I'm like, yeah, but I can't do that now because I've got to do this.
I mean,
can't do this now. Well, what about, can I pause it and then do it later? No,
I don't even want to count, but I'm looking at my schedule for tomorrow. I've got 5, 7, 10, 15, 19, 23, 34, 37 tasks for tomorrow.
Yeah.
37, not 5, 37. And that's with some bigger blocks of things as well. Like I've got a 2-hour block in there for something, and another event after that. So I'll probably add some tasks in tomorrow as I'm going throughout the day. So it'll probably close in on 40 tasks a day. That's around roughly average for me anyway. Because there's so many things I've got to do, like meds, drink water, check news, check certain updates of different forums and things, check for podcasts, check emails, like all those small little granular tasks that I need to make sure I do at some point. They got to go in the thing that I use to manage my time, which for me is Morgan. If I was to use Timo or even Sunsama, I think I would struggle. What this is saying to me right now is I need to look at more time management tools, because I've looked at loads of note-taking tools.
Yeah, maybe.
So maybe I need to look at Sorry?
Yeah, look at Cron.
But yeah, I only had a look at Cron because everyone in Notion was like, Cron's going to be the savior of Notion calendar Google integration thing. And it just, yeah, it wasn't. Everyone in Notion was like, oh, Notion acquired Cron and Cron have now released this, that, and the other, and it's now out of beta. And there were some nice features in Cron, but there was a lot of constraints in Cron as well. So that's my personal view in it. Maybe they've moved it forwards, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other time management apps out there, and because of the way I'm using Morgan, I would argue I could compare Morgan to ClickUp, compare Morgan to Asana.
They're all fucked.
Because when I think about what ClickUp, what Asana, what Monday.com are trying to do is manage time for projects. I think the biggest limitation when I compare those tools is Morgan is individual and those are team-based.
Yeah.
That's the biggest limitation. But as an individual, as a freelancer, as an entrepreneur, as a creator, whatever word you want to put there, managing your time, it's Morgan to me is better. I don't know whether that's controversial or not, but I mean, I'm doing all my project management for, I mean, I guess you could argue 5 things, 5 areas, as it works. I got 2 YouTube channels, this podcast, my newsletter, and then the academy. The course merging into academy, update video coming out probably the week of this video. I don't know. But yeah, so I've got like 5 areas.
I'm so excited. Completely. I am finally going to be updating. Like, one of the things I want to do is kind of have an academy style thing.
Oh yeah.
And finally, I'm going to put it all on my website. Because I found a couple of particular plugins that afford that for me versus what I currently have, which is very like linear. And I'm like, it just doesn't work. And I can't drip content. And I can drip content, but I can't add new stuff as I go. And that has become a real of like, I've got to finish this entire lesson before it goes out. And I've got to write it all up and I've got to have it all done before I can publish it. Whereas with this tool that I'm looking at and exploring and trying to use, I can have in progress lessons that are hidden so that I make sure I got everything written in a way that I like.
That's literally how I use Discord.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm like, yes, I can do that now. And I'm super excited because it's affording me a whole host of things that I want to actually be able to do.
I don't know whether you've recently seen the academy inside of the Discord, but I have like summary forum posts of like, hey, here's all of the lessons in this module. So I can literally, like today, I'll be like, okay, I've changed the way I use Morgan. I'm going to record a 10-minute video, cut it up a little bit, put it on YouTube as an unlisted video, and then put it into the course, and it's done. Well, course into the academy, and it's done, it's finished, and it's so much quicker than if you have a course platform. You got to make sure that it's in the lesson, it's published to the lesson, it's got all the other stuff, and it's just a lower weight way of adding things to it. But moving backwards, I guess, slightly to the project management, it means I don't have to schedule like this whole project, do granular task management, assign things to this person, when's the due date. No, I just do it. It's just one task on my calendar. It's like, do this video. Okay. Done.
Yeah. So good. So good.
As a closing thought, when it comes to collaborative time management, because those with ND, or that identify as ND, when they talk about writing a book, they bring on freelancers or they bring in other people. And then because they have whatever developmental disorder, they struggle with whatever time management it is, they are accountable to the other person, or the other person doesn't get stuff done, and working backwards and forwards with other people, whether it's at work or whether it's freelancing stuff, sort of stuff we do. How would you explain those experiences, and how would you try and manage those experiences, or advise people to manage those experiences, either using tools or using skills that they can develop? What would you say?
I think the most important thing is the intention setting when you bring someone on, and actually talking, okay, here are the things that go really wrong sometimes. And like, these are the things that I struggle with. I will struggle with these. I will struggle with, like, that is probably, and it's not the sexiest thing in the world, but it's the most, if people understand where the struggles are, it's so much better. For me, one of the things, like, from my own neurodevelopmental disorder of autism, I'm quite a little bit anal on things, whereas my other half has ADHD.
Is that an international thing, by the way? I don't know. When you
What's
say
that?
you're anal on something, obviously I know what you mean.
Oh, good point. Yeah, that's the
I was
point.
just
Yeah,
thinking, American
I'm
audience, are they going to
very,
know what that means?
I am very particular. I am very like, if it's not done this way, I will go and redo it.
Yeah.
Even if it's done well. I'm like, no, just put this here, there. My poor team, it probably drove them insane. But I think, but then you've got ADHD who like body doubling and things like that. Be up front. Say what you need. When you're hiring someone, if you're hiring someone in your business, you're paying someone, be clear on your needs, and not just, oh, has good work ethic, or can do these things or that things or this thing or that thing, but like, here is what I need. This is going to benefit me if this happens, or I have that, or I have this. By having that, like, clear intentions, it's way better than any app. It just is.
Mm.
But
When it,
everyone's just talking about, oh, these are the tasks you'll be asked to do. This is the apps we're going to use.
I
But
am
don't talk about why.
curious. I am curious when it comes to either assigning or relying on another person to do something. How did you do it, and how would you change or stay the same with what it is that you're doing? Now that I'm working with an editor, my sister, I'm working with that. So I'm curious to see how you did it, how you would do it now. Because I think you
How I,
use Notion.
yeah, it was primarily using Notion. What would I change? Would I change? I think what I would probably do is probably use Notion still, I think. Um, but the intention setting would be clearer, of like, oh, one thing that I think is really important, and I found really important, is that I don't care how you do it as long as you do it. I'm not that hard of a, like, oh, have you done this? Have you done that? I'm going to assume you've done it, and I'm probably not going to go check
Yeah.
unless a client comes back to me and says, well, this isn't done and that isn't done and this isn't done and that. And I'm like, oh, cool. Right, let me go check. I think that's kind of, at least from where I am now, that's kind of where I work from. And I feel I did that. Kind of intrigued to know whether I did or not. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I don't know whether I would do much different.
Because I feel like that's similar with most people that work with others, is they want to just say, okay, go do this thing, and then they go do the thing. Like whatever it is.
Yeah, I'm
And
always there to answer questions. I'm always there, like, okay, cool. If you didn't understand this, then this is what this means, and then blah, 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 etc., etc. Like, I always have space for that. But most of the time, it's like, you need something, come ask me. I'm not going to pester you. I'm not going to keep on. I will check in every time. Is everything okay? Are you happy? But most of the time, go do.
when it comes to the sharing of the tasks and the things of like ClickUp and Asana and the rest of it, is you assign people tasks, but I don't imagine everyone looking at, oh, did they get the thing done, and is it ticked off in the project manager? Like, I feel like that becomes the friction point. It's like you need to look at the tasks in the project manager to see if they've been ticked off, not necessarily have they actually done the thing, because they might have done the thing
Yeah.
and not ticked the thing off.
And not ticked it off, which was something that we had.
And to me, that's a friction point that can be easily solved. So the way I work with my sister at the moment is I ask her to do something, and I can see in the video timeline whether she's done it or not. So I ask her to do the thing, and I can see it on the calendar because she puts it in her Morgan as a task, and I see her calendar. So I see it as an event, and I can see, oh, she's doing that thing today. I don't need to see whether she's done it or not in the calendar. She needs to see it, but I don't. So I can just look into whatever it is that she was meant to be doing. Has she done Bounce 5 Part 2? No. Okay, I need to talk to her about this. On your calendar, you said you were going to do this bit of editing. You haven't done it yet. Why? Oh, I went out to a concert, or I went out clubbing, or I'm tired, or my friends got in the way, whatever it is. Okay, can you do it for this deadline? Yes, I will get it done this time. She puts task on calendar. I see task on her calendar, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
I don't need to know all the granular task setting that she's doing, but I can see it because it's on her calendar. Inside a project management tool, I don't know what I would do apart from like have to go in and check what she's doing, but now I'm not in my calendar. And to me, that adds a friction point.
Yeah. I think one of the common friction points that people think they would have with like task management and project management inside of a calendar is, oh, but then it'll get too busy. And I'm like, yes, that's the damn point. Because if it looks too busy, then you've got to ask yourself something. Is that too much? If it is, what do you want to do about that?
But this is where the calendar sets in Morgan is a really nice feature.
I was about to go there. It's like calendar sets in Morgan. Oh, heavenly. Like that's it. I don't have to think about it. I'm done. I'm good because I have the calendar sets. I can see what I need to see, and I'm happy. I'm very happy.
I mean, something that I use now a lot is I use one for me and I use two for other people, so I can see what other people are doing. So I can see the calendar that you've shared with me for the podcast for booking guests and stuff. I can see my sister's editing calendar, and I can see other people that I've worked with in the past as well. When I was working with them in the past, so I know I can go one, okay, this is my stuff. Click two, oh, okay, that's someone else's stuff, sort of thing. And it means that I can keep track of what everyone else is doing, but I don't need to see it all the time.
Yeah.
Which makes my calendar the best place to see everything. And if you have your calendar set up appropriately for the way you work, as an example, I have a project, but my sister needs to see when we're doing the project, when it's due. So I set some of the tasks in my calendar to the joint calendar. So she can see when we're editing, when we're scripting, and when we need to publish. But when I'm editing, well, that's my task. So that's in my task calendar. She can see it if she wants to see it, but she doesn't want to see my stuff, so she doesn't, which is fine. Because then her calendar would be very blocky. And that to me is better than a project management tool. But obviously there's going to be arguments against it. That works for me.
Do you have, so in your Google Calendar, do you still have the separate calendar types that you used to?
I don't have any more calendars. I still have, I guess, 4 calendars. I don't know what they're called. Is it going to tell me? No, it's not going to tell me in here, is it? No, I don't know what they're called. I'm just going to double check to make sure I'm not lying. Yeah, so I have events, which is my personal calendar, the default calendar, the main one. That's where I'm going and doing stuff. I then have what's I call an ideal calendar. It's like events that I've blocked out. Like ideally, this is what I would be doing right now. And they're just free events in a calendar. It's kind of like a ghost calendar that I show myself. I'm like, what should I be doing around now? Oh, I should be writing, or I should be researching, I should be editing. But obviously,
that's where your blocked time is. in that calendar.
Sort of.
Well, blocked.
Yeah.
Like
That's how I
it's where
would.
your categories of time of when I'm ideal this during this period of time I'm doing this, during this period of time I'm doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can't share my calendar at the moment. But yeah, so it's just a blue calendar. So when I push when I push 2 on my keyboard, it comes up with a faded blue line, a blue event that says ES writing. So educational science channel writing. I need to be writing about educational science right now. But if I've actually finished the script, I don't need to write in that time. So I don't have a task to go there. Or I go, okay, I need to write there. What do I need to do? I look at the all day events. I look at what I should be scripting, which would be nothing at the moment because I've scripted everything this week. But I would look up and go, okay, I'm scripting this thing, and that ES is in that calendar. So I have the ES combined calendar. And then I have 2 calendars for my personal tasks. And this is related to some of the features that Morgan are going to be adding soon. I have a flexible task calendar and a blocked task calendar. So I have essentially 2 event calendars, an event calendar and an ideal planning calendar. I have 2 task calendars, an ideal calendar and a blocked calendar. And then I have 2 shared calendars, the podcast calendar and the educational science calendar. Nice. So I manage my projects inside of the appropriate combined calendar, which we can talk about that after this. And then the educational science one is obviously the second channel. My personal channel is in my personal tasks.
So in your events labeled one?
No, so my flexible tasks.
Ah, cool.
So yeah, but because of Morgan, they're in task lists. So in Morgan, I can see in my task list, oh, that's for that channel, that's for that channel, because I have personal tasks inside of the educational science dual channel. Because my sister wants to see some of them, but I want to see my personal ones. And that's where the task list. Yeah, so I can have things in my personal task list or the joint task. So in the educational science task list, in my personal calendar or the joint calendar, but they
because when you look inside of here, inside of Morgan, I point at Morgan as if everyone can see, it doesn't matter. It looks the same.
Yeah,
which is so good. Whereas if you would, for people who don't have Morgan and are looking at Google Calendar, they're like, why are you switching between calendars and all this stuff? Because you don't need to switch between calendars. Yay.
exactly. I mean, that's so I would say my personal stuff is run on 3 but planned with 4. And then the combined work is an additional 2 because I need to see other people's stuff or I need to share things with other people. And then I will say I do have other calendars in my Morgan. So I have the UK holidays. I've got my mum's calendar, my sister's personal calendar. So that's where I see her tasks, my dad's calendar, and then I have your calendar as well.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah. So that's it for today's episode. That went far longer than I was expecting, but it's all exciting stuff.
Oh, it did, didn't it? I didn't realize that.
So if you have any questions, any thoughts, any recommendations of apps or tools or things that you think maybe are better than Morgan or works better for you in your situation, let us know your needs. And we'll pay attention to the comments.
Your needs. I like that.
Bye.